to a Technicamp series on how to make a game in GameMaker Studio 2. I'm Jack, and I will be producing a series of videos all about creating a game. With these videos, you can watch each one individually for a guide on how to do specific things in GameMaker Studio 2, or you can watch the entire playlist, link below in the description, for a guide on how to make a game step by step. Now, to start off, the most important thing about game design as an industry is it is very easy to tell which games have been planned and which games have been just made. When you plan a game, you tend to make a much better product. And the reason behind this is things are more thought out. By planning, you can experiment with ideas before wasting the time coding each of the ideas, then to find out that they don't work. And you can be sure that the game concept is solid. For that reason, this first video is going to be mostly about planning and a brief introduction to the GameMaker Studio. So, to start off, I'm going to run you through my plan for the game. A plan can be as simple as a small drawing on a piece of paper, or it could be a 1000-page document. It's all about what works best for the developer. Here is a very brief and simple plan. I would not count this as adequate for designing a game, but is good for our demonstration purposes. The game I'm going to design is all about navigating a player to the shops through a maze of streets and houses, all whilst avoiding the traffic. Before visiting the shop, they might have to collect coins to have enough money to purchase their goods, but that is the goal of the game. I've sketched out the first level on the right very crudely. We've got a player character, we've got moving obstacles, i.e. the traffic, we've got static obstacles, be it walls or other houses, and the shop, which is the goal. Another important part of planning is thinking ahead of what assets you might need. So that might be sound assets, image assets, backgrounds, music, things like that. But another important part of any game, especially games designed in GameMaker Studio, are the objects. The objects are the interactive part of the game, and it is a very good idea in the planning stage to make a list of the objects you envision your game needing and how those objects will behave. Behave here means how they will interact with the game and other objects in the game. So over here on the left I have my object list. I have the character, the player character. The behavior of the player character is that the character will move with user input. So when the user presses right, the character moves right, and so on. The cars move up and down depending on the direction they're facing, and they hit the player. So here is an interesting distinction. You need to decide whether the character behaves when the character hits a car, or the car behaves when the car hits the character. It's two different things. So it's interesting to consider that and what implications that could have for your code. Over here we have the shop. The shop is the trigger for the next level. Its behavior is that when the player collides with the shop, the next level will load. And finally, the walls are or obstacles or houses, these blocks here, they're going to stop the player. The player can't walk through them. It's such an important thing in the industry that these plans have a name. They are often called design documents or design bibles, and looking online you can find millions of them. Here is the design document for Star Fox 2, a game that wasn't released back in the day but has been released recently. this was developed by Nintendo, and this design document is available on Nintendo Japan's website. We can see it's dated 1995, so this practice has been around for years, and is in the original Japanese. And you can see here, a lot of it is concepts, sketched out, maybe menu designs, level designs, user input, and so on, and different behaviours. So these documents are essential for making sense of a game before having to commit any of it to code or asset production. Okay, with that in mind, let's take a dive into the GameMaker Studio software. It is available for Windows or Mac. We're going to start by clicking New to make a new project. Now, you have a choice here whether you want to do this in drag and drop or GameMaker language. Drag and drop is a visual programming language that is completely unique to GameMaker Studio. No other visual programming language looks anything like drag and drop. It's completely unique, unused in the industry, and quite ugly. And I highly recommend choosing GameMaker language instead. It's to the point that GameMaker's own tutorials will actually recommend using GameMaker language. GameMaker language is a programming language that's very similar to JavaScript, and as such it's easy to understand, it's got lots of support online, and it is a lot easier to debug. So we're going to choose GameMaker language here. It'll ask you to create a game folder. This is our project folder that will store all the assets used in creating the game. You can give it a name. This is going to be Traffic Control 2 because I've already got Traffic Control 1. And we are into the IDE, which stands for Integrated Developer Environment. All it means is it's a nice, friendly environment that makes it easy to create games. The first thing you see is this workspace with the blurred background. The workspace is like a tabletop where you can drag all the separate things you're working on. What things might you be working on? Well, those can be seen over in the asset browser on the right. The asset browser is a series of folders, and each folder contains a certain type of asset. So the sprites folder contains sprites, the objects folder contains objects, the fonts folder contains fonts, and so on. They can be opened up and edited when you have something in there. The next few videos will cover what we'll actually be putting in some of these folders, but for now that is the end of this brief introduction. Remember to look in the description of this video for links to the playlist if you want to see the next in the series. The next in the series being creating sprites. For now, that is all from me. Thank you for listening.